today's video is to show you how I drill my position markers on the edge of my fretboards. My method is super simple and foolproof and works every single time. You don't need any fancy jigs, only a block of wood and a wedge of wood, and you can drill your perfect position markers every time. So stick around, and I hope you get to check out my other videos. I've got lots of tips and tricks that I like to share. Helps make the guitar making process go smoother, faster, and makes things more accurate too. First things first, you are going to want to decide what kind of position markers you are going to use. So there's everything from pearl dots, there's different kinds of color of pearl, there's different shell types. Then what I like to use is actually metal tubes. They end up looking like a little ring in the edge of the fretboard. And I've used a variety of aluminum, copper, and brass. I actually haven't used the brass, but I have them. And there are different sized tubes too. So I like to use the small ones on the edge of the fretboard. They are a little bit more subtle. They're not, I think proportionately they fit nicely on the edge of the fretboard. And if you jump up to a tube that's a bit bigger like this one, I think this is 1/8 of an inch, then you can actually get plastic, clear plastic rods that fit inside them, and it makes it a lot easier to fill inside these tubes once they're in the fretboard edge. Because that is a bit of a pain in the butt every time I do it. So for this video I'm going to be putting copper tube cross sections into the edge of the fretboard, and but for any of the other position marker materials it's basically the same idea. You just need to find the right size drill bit and go with that. And of course other than these fretboard edge markers, there are all sorts of options. You can inlay something that's not a circle. The sky's kind of the limit as far as position markers go, but for this video I'm going to be focusing on dot inlays for the edge of the fretboard. If you do want to use these tubes like I like to use, you can buy them from hobby supply stores online. Just look up copper metal tubes or aluminum or brass, and you should be able to find it. It's, yeah, just a hobby store supply. So, but I do have some tips for cutting and getting clean results with these tubes. First of all, you kind of have to make sure that the side that's going to go inside the hole, the end that's going to go inside the hole, is clean and doesn't have any burrs on it. But also that inside edge, if you're using clear super glue to fill this hole, any burrs on the inside of the tube are going to show up in that tube. So I like to sand the ends as I cut the sections off. So I sand this, and then I sand, twist it as I'm sanding here, basically rounding the edge a little bit. Okay, so that's one. I used to use a saw to cut these little chunks off, and then I had the brilliant idea of using the pipe cutter method. You know, like when you're cutting a copper pipe, you take the pipe cutter and tighten the blade on it and rotate it around. Basically that method at a microscopic scale. So I have an X-Acto knife, and I just roll the piece back and forth, and it cuts the piece. So often I'll lose a few of these as I'm doing them, but I don't know, 4-ish millimeters long is long enough. You want it to be longer than how deep you put the hole, because you don't want to lose it down in the hole. So there you go. I'll keep going until I've got enough position markers, maybe a few extras for the next fretboard. It's good to do a bunch of these at once, and then you have some for next time if you're gonna make it a standard thing. Now to drill the holes in the edge of the fretboard, I'm going to use a wedge and double-sided tape it to the edge of the fretboard, just so that when I drill with the drill press, I'm going to be drilling perpendicular to the edge of the fretboard. Now this probably doesn't matter a whole lot. If you drill a little bit angled without this wedge, it's still going to look like a circle because it's such a slight taper. But this makes things perfect, so I like to do that. So I have a wedge which makes this the same thickness here as it is over here. Basically eliminates the taper of the fretboard. I don't want anything sticking out on the back side of the fretboard because that is going to be against a fence, and I want that to be very accurate. So the excess tape I'm just sticking out the other side. The side with the slots. Should probably just make my tape thinner. So this, as I slide it along the fence, is going to stay the same height the whole way. I guess I should have also mentioned this. I'm making for a right-handed guitar, so the position markers are on they're always going to be on the bass side of the fingerboard. So if it's going to be a left-handed guitar, your position markers would be on this other side, facing up to the player. So just envision where it's sitting when you're playing the guitar and put the position markers facing up towards the player. I like to put a position marker at the 3rd fret, the 5th fret, and then 2 at the 7th fret, and then 1 at the 9th, and then 2 at the 12th. Of course, 2 at the 12th is sort of the main marker because it's an octave. But 2 at the 7th fret, I find that sort of helps break up all the single dots. It makes it easier to find where you are, and it makes it less confusing between the single dots. And then again, I start after the octave or the 12th fret, I'll start again 3rd fret, 5th fret, and then 2 on the 7th fret. So I have marked that already, of course, in the center for the single position markers between the fret slots. And then I like to put the fret dots closer together when it's up near the end of the fingerboard, and then a bit further apart at the lower end. So that the 7th fret, I like to put them 8 millimeters apart. At the 12th fret, 6 millimeters apart, and then at the 19th fret, I like to put them 4 millimeters apart. And I am using dots that are 1/16 of an inch in diameter. So let's go over to the drill press and I will show you that part. The most important thing for making these holes accurate is to put the drill bit in to the chuck so that only a little bit is sticking out. Because when you have a little drill bit like this and it's sticking out way out, and you start drilling into wood, it wants to wander and it wants to follow the grain. If you have it just a little bit sticking out of the drill press, it's going to be an accurate hole. So I don't even have a brad point bit here. It's going to follow an accurate path because the chuck is solid and it's right close to the chuck. So I've double checked that this is the right sized bit. I've done a test hole and checked to see if the position markers that I'm going to be using fit nicely into the hole. You don't want it to be really tight into the hole because if you have to hammer those position markers out, it can bust out the back of the fretboard, and you don't want that to happen. So as long as the position markers fit relatively snugly, even a little bit loose is okay. As I mentioned, this way of drilling accurate holes is super simple. I don't have any fancy jigs or anything. basically this fence is just a chunk of wood. I'm going to clamp it in place, and then I can adjust the distance from the drill bit to the fence by where I clamp my drill table, and any adjustments depending on how I clamp this. I could actually make some really minor adjustments with some pretty big swings of the drill press table. So I'm going to clamp this in place and we'll go from there. And then as far as adjusting the distance, kind of eyeball it, and then you can do a test hole and measure and check. Okay, now for a test hole, I've got extra length on this fretboard so I can test over here and see if I like the placement. I'm going to move it out a little bit. There we go, that looks better. I like about 1.5 millimeters from the back of the fretboard to the edge of the position marker holes. That allows for, of course, the fretboard to get radiused, so some of this thickness is going to be taken down on the edge. And then it also allows a little bit of extra room in case, for whatever reason, this fretboard needs to be planed down in the future, so that whoever does that doesn't end up planing into those position markers, because that would look terrible. So I can go ahead, before I drill these holes, of course I want to double check that I'm drilling on the right side and that my position markers are in the right spot. So for at 1, 2, 3, there's a position marker, yeah. 4, 5, 1, yeah. 6, 7, 2 position markers, yeah. 9, yeah. 10, 11, 12, 2 position markers, yep. And then 1, 2, 3, yeah. 4, 5, yep. 6, 7, and 2, that's right. So I have a fretboard template as well that I have those markers on that I can just lay this next to. That's another quick way to check. But of course I'm making a right-handed guitar, so the position markers are going on this side. That is correct. So I am ready to go. I'm going to go ahead, make sure everything is solid. Yep, nothing's going to move. Okay, I'm good to go. I'm going to drill these. I don't need to go too deep, probably 2 or 3 millimeters at the most. I just need a section of these tubes inside the fretboard. So the whole time I'm going to make sure that I'm pressing this fretboard against this fence so that I don't end up somewhere else on the edge of the fretboard. I really don't want that. So pressing against the fence, moving it over, and continuing on. There we go. So if something went terribly wrong, if I drilled a hole in the wrong spot, whatever, I can just plane this strip off of the fingerboard and glue a new strip on and redo it. It's not a big deal. But it looks like everything went well. I've never had to do that, so this method works really well. Super simple, easy to set up, and cheap. You don't have to buy a jig or anything like that. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Just a block of wood, a wedge to put under your fingerboard, and make sure to put your drill bit so that only a little bit of it is sticking out of the chuck. thanks for watching, and be sure to go check out other videos on tips and tricks for guitar making. I have lots of them, and they all make the guitar making process a little bit easier and often more accurate.